So my career path to becoming a CPO actually started back when I did my psychology degree, which really cemented my decision to move into HR. So I did my postgraduate qualification in human resource management, and then I secured my first HR job, which was as an HR administrator, which I think gave me just a fantastic grounding in all things HR, all of the HR, fundamentals. And my career really went from there. So I changed roles and companies in order to continue progressing, and then ended up in my CPO equivalent position, which was Executive Vice President of HR for a FTSE 250 life sciences organisation. I'm now an interim CPO providing support for a whole variety of different clients. And I think what's been quite nice in terms of when I look back on my career is that with every change of company, I've had a change of sector. So I've gone from aerospace to information communication and technology to financial services to engineering to life sciences, as I mentioned, and then a whole plethora of other industries on a consultancy basis. So I've worked in the large corporates, I've worked in SMEs, I've worked in unionised environments, non-unionised environments, I've worked in publicly listed organisations as well as privately held, and I'm now a director of my own business as well. So it's meant, I think, I've been able to really bring a wide variety of experience in terms of culture, in terms of challenges, in terms of HR, people practices, and a really fresh perspective. The kinds of organisational challenges I've had to deal with have been many and varied. I think some notable challenges have been around M&A. So, for example, leading all of the HR work streams to create one new company following the merger of two. So that was extremely complex, very challenging, very intense programme of holistic change. So that was one notable challenge. I've done a ton of work in vision, values, culture. For example, we changed our company strategy and our business model at one point and needed to create a much more customer-centric culture. I think from an exco and a board perspective, I've had some challenges around some of the dynamics there, which have required a huge amount of tenacity and resilience, a lot of emotional intelligence to kind of navigate through sensitively and appropriately. So I've certainly faced some challenges there. And from an HR leadership point of view, some challenges around HR evolution, so transforming HR functions, including in one case really creating a new function from scratch. And I think beyond some of those examples, I think for any CPO that's in an organisation, perhaps more of an SME, where you have limited internal resources, there's also the challenge of balancing being deeply strategic one moment of the day, right the way through to deeply operational the next. So I can distinctly remember that first step up into a CP role, and I can remember how I felt because the transition is really significant. I think the weight of responsibility is really significant because you're no longer in a position where someone more senior than you has ultimate accountability for HR. It's you, you're it. So it's quite scary actually and potentially quite daunting. And I can remember I felt an enormous sense of pressure, which was self-imposed actually. So I did this to myself. To be perfect from day one, to be utterly competent and capable, fully confident, even though I was experiencing things for the first time, and these were things that had significant consequences in terms of how I managed them. And at the time, I really didn't feel I had anywhere I could go to for support or for advice or for guidance, particularly because one of my challenges at the time was building the HR function from scratch as well. So yeah, it was quite isolating, quite scary. It's unbelievably liberating to be in a position where you can have, impact and influence across an organisation. And I remember loving being part of those ExCo conversations where you're participating in the creation of company visions and strategies, and then of course authoring the people strategy and overseeing its implementation. And I really loved the fact that you start to go beyond your functional expertise and you start to develop your commercial capabilities as an enterprise-wide leader, not just a functional leader. I didn't have a mentor when I first stepped into that first CPO role, and I think if I had, it really would have been transformational, and I think it would have made a difference in two ways. So I think firstly, I've mentioned the fact that you could feel quite isolated, quite daunted. I think if I'd had somebody by my figurative side who'd been there, who had gone through what I was going through, who could give me support, both emotional and practical, insight, guidance, a perspective, I think my whole experience of the transition would have been very different, and I think my mental health and well-being actually would have benefited. When you are in a CPO role, again with these very significant accountabilities where how you perform has a very meaningful impact across the whole organisation, that personal effectiveness really, really counts. And when I look back, I absolutely made some mistakes. I think I probably was more hesitant at times than I could otherwise have been or would otherwise have been, possibly a little more indecisive at times. And again, I think if I'd had an experienced mentor by my side for that, that really would have accelerated my route to optimum performance, which would absolutely have benefited the business. I think it's having somebody else as a sounding board who has an alternative perspective, who has insight that they can bring to bear on a particular challenge or opportunity that you're facing. I think I could help if it was to do with M&A, whether that's due diligence or post M&A integration activities, whether it's around organisational design and development, restructuring, for example, again, cultural change and general kind of transformation of either companies or HR functions. I think it can be tempting to seek a mentor from the same sector, and that could be absolutely valid, but there could also be real benefit of getting a perspective from someone who's experienced multiple sectors, which again is where I potentially could be of particular interest for somebody. It could be at the most senior levels, it could be exco or board, employee relations matters or dynamics, which due to their nature and then their heightened sensitivity, you just can't talk to anybody internally about. It would just be totally inappropriate. So having a really trusted, totally confidential partner that again you can bounce ideas around with, you can test your thinking, your ideas, you can run a number of different scenarios and kind of so what's and what ifs. Having that really kind of trusted ally and that support, I think again could accelerate that CPO's ability to drive things forwards for the benefit of absolutely everybody involved. One of the things I learned is that you have got to invest in a mentoring relationship that builds self-confidence and enables the mentee to flourish. And so for me, it's that compassion that I absolutely will bring into a mentoring relationship, and really equal measures of both support and challenge. I'm generally quite an energised person, I'm a positive person, I'm very outcome and solution orientated and deeply pragmatic. I would really love to work with like-minded professionals and really help them to flourish in what is, I think, a truly unique and potentially very fulfilling role. I think if I was giving just one piece of advice to someone who is newly in a CPO role, it would be to control the inner voices that will quite possibly be playing havoc in people's minds and potentially eroding their self-belief, their self-esteem, their self-confidence, because they're unhelpful. It's noise. Absolutely recognise if it is happening and find strategies to self-manage. I think the other piece of advice that I would give would be recognising that it's absolutely okay to recognise your own vulnerabilities and where you have strengths and where you are developing. Know that about yourself and make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people that complement those strengths and those areas where perhaps you either feel less experienced or less confident. It really is okay to need support and to need help, and make sure that you're drawing on that from wherever you need to find it.